The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of my Manhattan high-rise like it was trying to break in, mirroring the storm raging inside me. I just signed the divorce papers that morning, my hand shaking so bad the notary had to steady it, and now here I was, Austin freaking Hale, staring at a bottle of whiskey that promised numbness but delivered only echoes of her final words. "You're not the man I married anymore." But the truth, the one I'd buried under years of pretending, was that I wasn't sure I'd ever been that man at all. I slammed the bottle down, the clink echoing like a gunshot in the empty loft, and grabbed my coat before I could talk myself out of it. The bar on the corner was a dive I'd never set foot in, but tonight it called to me like a siren song, whispering that maybe, just maybe, one stranger's pity could stitch up the gaping wound in my chest. The door swung open to a haze of cigarette smoke and low jazz, the kind that slithers under your skin and makes you forget your name. I slid onto a stool at the scarred oak bar. The bartender, a grizzled vet with tattoos snaking up his arms, eyeing me like he could smell fresh heartbreak a mile away. "What'll it be, kid?" he grunted, polishing a glass that didn't need it. "Double scotch." "Neat," I muttered, my voice cracking like cheap porcelain. The burn hit my throat just as the door banged open again, letting in a gust of wind and a man who looked like he'd stepped out of one of those black and white films my dad used to watch, tall, broad-shouldered, with a jawline sharp enough to cut glass and eyes the color of a bruised summer sky. He shook off the rain from his leather jacket, scanned the room, and his gaze locked on mine like we'd been waiting for each other our whole lives. He didn't smile, didn't nod, just walked over and dropped onto the stool next to me, close enough that I caught the faint scent of sandalwood and wet asphalt. The bartender slid him a beer without a word, and for a moment, we sat there in that charged silence, two ghosts haunting the same foggy mirror. Then he turned, those blue eyes piercing right through my defenses, and said, "You look like you could use a hug." "The kind that doesn't come with strings," I laughed, a sharp, bitter bark that surprised even me, and before I could stop it, the dam broke. "Yeah, you look like you give 'em out like candy to strays." But my voice trembled, and he saw it, because in the next beat, he was off his stool, arms opening wide like an invitation to drown. I hesitated, the world narrowing to the warmth radiating from him, then stepped into it. His embrace was solid, unyielding, like oak roots gripping the earth, nothing tentative, nothing pitying. My face pressed against the soft flannel of his shirt, and for the first time in months, I let myself shatter, sobs racking my body as the rain outside wept in solidarity. "It's okay," he murmured into my hair, his voice a low rumble that vibrated through my bones. "Whatever it is, it's okay to let it go." His name was Jordan. I learned over the next hour as we nursed our drinks and traded fragments of our wreckage. He was a carpenter from Brooklyn, the kind who built custom bookshelves for Park Avenue brownstones but lived in a walk-up that smelled like sawdust and takeout. Divorced too. Though his had been Messier, a wife who'd walked out after finding texts from an ex-boyfriend he'd never quite shaken. "She called me a liar," he said, tracing the rim of his glass with a calloused thumb. But the real lie was pretending I could be straight for her sake. My heart stuttered at that, a flicker of recognition igniting in the ashes of my own facade. I'd married Sarah in college, convinced love was a checklist, the ring, the house, the 401k. But the nights I'd spent staring at the ceiling, replaying locker room glances from high school football, the way my pulse raced when a teammate's hand brushed mine, They'd piled up like unpaid bills until the whole thing collapsed. I think I'm figuring that out too, I admitted, the words tasting like freedom and fear in equal measure. Late to the party. Huh. Jordan's smile was crooked, warm as sunlight cracking through clouds. The party's just getting started. He clinked his bottle against my glass. And in that simple gesture, something shifted, like the first crack in a frozen river, promising a thaw I hadn't dared hope for. We stumbled out into the downpour sometime after midnight, the city a blur of neon and puddles reflecting our unsteady steps. My place was closer. A loft in Chelsea that Sarah had decorated with minimalist chic before she packed it all into storage. Jordan didn't question the invitation, he just followed, his hand brushing mine as we ducked under the awning, sending sparks up my arm that had nothing to do with static electricity. Inside, the space felt less like a tomb and more like a canvas, bare walls begging for new stories. I flicked on the lamp, casting golden pools across the hardwood, and turned to find him shrugging off his jacket, revealing a fitted black tee that hugged the ridges of his chest. "You good?" he asked. Off, eyes searching. I nodded. Throat tight. Better than good. And then, without planning it, I closed the distance, my hands finding his waist, pulling him in. His lips met mine, tentative at first, a question wrapped in whiskey, then deepening as I answered with a hunger I'd denied for years. It was messy, urgent, teeth clashing, breaths mingling like we'd been starved for air. His fingers threaded through my hair, tugging just enough to make me gasp, and when he lifted me onto the kitchen island, cool marble against my back, I knew this was no rebound. This was revelation. We moved to the bedroom in a tangle of limbs and shed clothes, the rain a relentless percussion urging us on. Jordan was patient, reverent, mapping my body with hands that knew the grain of wood but trembled now like I was something sacred. "Tell me what you need," he whispered against my collarbone, his breath hot. And I did, voice breaking on pleas I'd never voiced aloud. When he finally entered me, slow and deliberate, it was like coming home to a place I'd only dreamed of, pain blooming into pleasure, boundaries dissolving until there was only us, sweat slick and gasping, chasing a high that felt like absolution. Afterward, we lay entwined under the duvet, his heartbeat a steady drum against my ear. That was, I trailed off, tracing the tattoo on his forearm, a compass rose, inked in faded blues. "Intense," he finished, chuckling low. "Yeah. But good intense. The kind that sticks." He kissed my temple, and I believed him, drifting off to the storm's lullaby, imagining a future where hugs led to this. Every night. The next morning brought coffee and awkward domesticity, Jordan in my boxers, flipping pancakes with a grin that lit the loft like morning sun. We talked dreams over syrup, his to open a workshop in the Hudson Valley, mine to finally chase the architecture sketches gathering dust in my desk drawer. "You should," he said, eyes earnest. "Build something real, Austin. Not just blueprints." By noon, he had to go, a job site in Queens calling, but not before pinning me against the door for a kiss that tasted like promise. "Dinner tonight? My place. I'll make spaghetti that'll ruin you for Italian restaurants." "Deal?" I murmured, watching him disappear down the hall, a stupid smile stretching my face. For the first time since the papers, the apartment didn't echo with ghosts. It hummed with possibility. That week blurred into a montage of stolen moments, late-night texts that made me blush at board meetings, walks along the High Line where his hand in mine felt like defiance against the world's sideways glances. Jordan introduced me to his crew, rough-around-the-edges guys who ribbed him about finally snagging a pretty boy, and I met his sister, Mia, over beers in a Williamsburg dive. She sized me up with a protective glare, then pulled me aside. "He falls hard. Austin. Don't break him if you're still figuring shit out." "I'm all in," I assured her. And meant it. With Jordan, the pieces of me I'd hidden clicked into place. Sex evolved from frantic release to lazy explorations, mornings tangled in sheets, his mouth tracing lazy paths down my spine, evenings where he'd blindfold me with his tie, whispering filthy encouragements until I begged. But it was the quiet that hooked me deepest, him reading Hemingway aloud while I sketched beside him, our legs entwined on the couch, the city lights winking approval through the blinds. Yet cracks formed, subtle as hairlines in glass. He'd dodge questions about his ex, changing the subject with a kiss or a joke. Mid-dinner at his cramped apartment, pasta sauce simmering on the stove, his phone buzzed, and the color drained from his face. He silenced it, but not before I glimpsed the name, Evan. "Old client," he mumbled, but his laugh rang hollow. I let it slide, chalking it up to baggage. We all had it. Mine resurfaced in therapy sessions I started attending, unpacking the shame of a Catholic upbringing that branded desire like mine as sin. "You're not broken, Austin," my counselor said one Tuesday, her office overlooking the East River. "You're awakening." But awakenings scare people, especially those who love you. She was right. Sarah called out of the blue a week later, her voice brittle over the line. "I saw you on Instagram. At that Pride thing. With him. Is this real?" I hesitated, the old guilt clawing back. But then Jordan's laugh echoed from the kitchen, and I straightened. "Yeah. Sarah. It's real. And it's good." The line went quiet. Then, "I'm happy for you." Really? But the words hung heavy. A reminder that bridges burned don't always stay ash. Fall deepened, leaves carpeting Central Park in crimson and gold. And our rhythm solidified. Jordan surprised me with a weekend in the Catskills, a cabin he'd built himself, all exposed beams and a stone fireplace. We hiked trails slick with frost, shared thermoses of spiked cider, and made love on a bearskin rug as snow dusted the pines outside. "Marry me," he joked one night, dangling a key to his place like a ring, and I laughed, pulling him close. In a heartbeat. But hearts beat false rhythms too. It unraveled on a Tuesday in November, the kind of gray day that presses down like a thumb on your sternum. I'd wrapped a project early, a sustainable high-rise in Midtown that finally let me breathe, and decided to surprise Jordan at the site. A gut renovation in Soho. Armed with takeout from his favorite falafel joint, I navigated the scaffolding, the air thick with plaster dust and the whine of power tools. His truck was parked out front, and as I rounded the corner, I froze. In the shadowed alley beside the building was Jordan, pressed against the brick wall, locked in a kiss with a man I didn't recognize. With the easy grace of someone who'd grown up surfing California waves. Evan's arms were around Jordan's neck, possessive. And the way Jordan leaned into it. It gutted me. Like watching your own heart get vivisected. I dropped the bag. The thud lost in the construction din. But Jordan heard it, or felt it, because he jerked back. Eyes widening in horror. Austin, shit? Wait. Evan turned. Smirking like he'd won a bet. Who's this? The new toy. Get out, Jordan snarled at him. Shoving past to reach me. But I was already backing away. The world tilting on its axis. Betrayal tasted like bile. Hot and acrid. How long? I demanded. Voice a whip crack. The hugs. The promises. How long have you been playing me? It's not. He grabbed my arm. Desperate. Evan's my ex. He showed up today. Wouldn't take no for an answer. I swear. Listen. It's you. Only you. But the lie hung between us. Poisoned by the doubt he'd planted. That night. Alone in my loft. I scrolled through his texts, ones I'd glimpsed before. Now a floodgate of "I miss you" from Evan. Replies from Jordan that were too soft. Too lingering. Just friends, he'd said. Bullshit. Days bled into a haze of rage and rum. I ghosted him. Deleted the app. Threw myself into work until my eyes burned. Mia called once. Voice pleading, he's a mess. Austin. Give him a chance to explain. But explanation felt like another betrayal. And I was done bleeding. The climax hit at a holiday party. Actually, the firm's annual bash at the Standard. Fairy lights twinkled over the Hudson. Champagne flowed like regret. And there he was. Cornered by the bar. Suit rumpled like he'd slept in it. Our eyes met across the room. And the air crackled. Pulling me toward him despite every screaming instinct. You came, he said when I stopped in front of him. Voice raw as sandpaper. Couldn't not. I swallowed hard. The words tumbling out. I loved you, Jordan. The way you made me feel seen, like I wasn't broken. But trust. You shattered that. He flinched. Eyes glistening. I know. Evan was a ghost I couldn't exorcise. We hooked up once. After you and I started, stupid, scared shit. Thought I could bury the past without telling you. Biggest mistake of my life. Tears tracked down his stubbled cheek. I love you, Austin. Not as a hug to fill a void. As my everything. The room spun. Guests laughing oblivious. And I saw it then, the boy I'd been. Hiding in plain sight. And the man I could be. Whole despite the scars. Prove it, I whispered. Not pulling away when he cupped my face. No more ghosts. His kiss was apology and vow. Salty with tears. And in that moment, under the glittering skyline, I chose forgiveness, not blind, but brave. We left together, hands clasped against the winter chill. The city unfolding like a map to uncharted tomorrows. Months unfurled like tentative buds in spring. Our relationship a deliberate rebuild. Therapy dates where we unpacked the debris. Weekends hammering nails into Jordan's dream workshop upstate. I designed the space on paper first. Sleek lines meeting rustic charm. And watching him bring it to life. Sweat beading on his brow as he planed beams. Felt like co-authoring our own epic. This is us, he'd say. Pressing a kiss to my sawdust-streaked shoulder. Solid. Unbreakable. But life That sly bastard doesn't let you off easy. My firm landed a contract for a queer youth center in Harlem, pro bono. My pitch, and the hours swallowed me whole. Late nights drafting elevations, community meetings where kids' stories of rejection mirrored my own youth. It was fulfilling in a bone-deep way, but it carved hollows under my eyes. Jordan noticed. Of course, stocked the fridge with kale smoothies, rubbed my feet while binging old rom-coms. "You're changing the world, babe," he'd murmur, pride warming his voice. "Don't forget to let me change yours sometimes." I didn't. We traveled, a road trip down the Blue Ridge Parkway, windows down, his hand on my thigh as Bruce Springsteen wailed about Thunder Roads. Nashville. We danced in a dive bar to fiddle tunes, bodies pressed close amid a sea of flannel and freedom. And later, in a motel room with peeling wallpaper, he loved me slow, eyes locked like anchors. "Forever," I gasped, arching into him. "Damn right," he growled, sealing it with a bite to my neck that bloomed purple the next day. Back in the city, Sarah re-entered the frame, a reconciliation lunch at a Soho cafe. Awkward but healing. "You look happy," she said, stirring her lot, rings glinting on her finger from a new bow. "Glowing. Even." I nodded, throat tight. And when I told her about Jordan, the full story, Evan, the alley, the mending, she squeezed my hand. "Growth isn't linear, Austin. You deserve this detour." Her words lingered as Pride season hit, rainbows flooding Fifth Avenue like a fever dream. We marched, Jordan's arm around my waist, chanting with a chorus of voices that drowned out old echoes of shame. That night, on my balcony overlooking the parade's distant roar, he dropped to one knee, not with a ring, but a hammered copper band he'd forged himself, etched with our initials intertwined. "No pressure," he said. "But yeah, forever." Tears blurred the skyline as I pulled him up, kissing him fierce. "Just good." Yes. Wedding planning became our new language, small, intimate, on a rooftop in Brooklyn with wildflowers and craft beer. Mia officiated, her toast a roast that had us howling, to Jordan, who finally learned to measure twice before cutting corners on love. Laughter rippled, but my vows choked me up. "You hugged me when I was unraveling, Jordan. But let's weave something eternal." The reception spilled into dawn, bodies swaying to vinyl spins, and when we slipped away to the fire escape, his hands sliding under my shirt, it felt like the first time, electric, inevitable. "Mrs. Halk," he teased, nipping my ear. "Mr. Halking," I shot back, grinding against him until we tumbled inside, the door slamming on the world's applause. But euphoria's a fragile high, and reality crashed in with my diagnosis, prostate cancer, caught early during a routine checkup, stage 1, treatable. The words landed like a sucker punch in DR. Patel's sterile office, fluorescent lights buzzing judgment. Hormone therapy, radiation, good prognosis. "Mr. Hale," he assured, but the pamphlets on fertility and intimacy mocked me as I clutched them, envisioning a future dimmed. Jordan took it like a man possessed, researching trials, lining up specialists, his hands steady when mine shook. "We're in this," he said that night, curled around me on the couch, the city a distant hum. "Sickness and health. Remember, but doubt not, The fatigue from meds that zapped my libido. The way he'd catch me staring at the mirror, tracing scars from surgery like fault lines. What if I can't be enough anymore? I whispered once, voice small. He tilted my chin, eyes fierce. You're everything. Always. And he proved it, not with grand gestures, but quiet ones, reading to me during chemo fog, tracing patterns on my skin with featherlight touches that rebuilt desire brick by brick. Sex shifted. Tender explorations over marathon sessions. His mouth worshipping me until I shattered, reminding me pleasure wasn't lost, just reshaped. Friends rallied, Mia baking casseroles that tasted like home, Sarah sending care packages with cheesy rom-coms and notes, fight like hell. Austin. Love wins. The youth center groundbreaking became my anchor. Kids' faces lighting up as they toured the model, their stories fueling my fight. One boy, Jamal, hugged me after, whispering, "You're brave, Mr. Hale." Makes me think I can be too. Through it, Jordan's love was the keel, unwavering, even when I lashed out, resentment bubbling in weak moments. "I hate this," I snarled one evening, chemo nausea twisting my gut. Hate feeling like half a man. He didn't flinch, just held the basin as I retched, then pulled me close. "You're whole to me. Every goddamn inch." His forgiveness was a balm, teaching me grace for myself. Remission came in spring, scans clean as a whistle, and we celebrated with a hike up Breakneck Ridge, sweat and summit. His hand in mine at the peak, Hudson River sprawling like a vein of blue mercy. To us, he toasted with a flask of bourbon, and I kissed him salty and sure, the wind whipping promises around us. Life settled into a deeper rhythm, the workshop thriving, my firm expanding with eco-projects that honored the human scale. We adopted a mutt from the shelter, a scruffy terrier named Scout who chewed Jordan's boots but slept between our feet. Nights were for board games and back rubs, mornings for coffee and quiet "I love yous" before the grind. Yet echoes lingered. Evan resurfaced once. A drunk voicemail at 2 a.m., "Heard you're hitched now. Hope it's worth the leash." Jordan deleted it without a word, but I saw the shadow cross his face. "Old ghosts," he sighed later, over whiskey by the fire. "But you're my light, Austin. Don't ever doubt that." I didn't. Betrayal's scar tissue toughened us, turning vulnerability into strength. When Mia announced her pregnancy, a niece or nephew on the way, we threw a barbecue in the yard we'd finally bought. A fixer-upper in Ditmas Park with a porch swing and room for roots. Laughter rang out, grills smoking, and as the sun dipped, Jordan pulled me aside, key in hand. "Our turn." Tears pricked joy, not pain. "Yeah. Let's build a family." Gears wove on threads of ordinary magic, Scout's first snow. The nursery painted sky blue, our son's cries piercing the dawn like hallelujahs. Little Theo, with Jordan's eyes and my stubborn chin, became our compass, toddling through sawdust at the workshop, blueprints his playground. Fatherhood cracked me open wider, nights rocking him through colic, Jordan's arm around us both, whispering lullabies in that gravel voice. Challenges came, as they do, Theo's schoolyard taunts for our weird family, my firm's layoffs forcing a pivot to consulting. But we navigated, hands linked, turning headwinds into sails. One Christmas, as snow blanketed the backyard, Theo asked, Daddy Austin? How'd you and Papa meet? Jordan grinned over eggnog, winking. With a hug. The best kind. I pulled them close, heart full to bursting. And it went further than I ever imagined. In the quiet after, as lights twinkled on the tree, I traced the copper band on Jordan's finger, tarnished but true. Divorce had been my unraveling, but this man, this life, was the tapestry I'd weave from the threads. Human, profoundly beautiful. And ours. The idol fractured subtly, like a pane of glass under pressure, tiny fissures from the outside world seeping in. It started with the headlines, a wave of anti-LGBTQ bills sweeping red states. But even blue New York felt the chill. Theo's preschool, once a rainbow haven, fielded complaints from helicopter parents about indoctrination, their glares at pickup line feeling like accusations. Daddy, why do they stare? He'd ask, pudgy hand in mine, and I'd force a smile, murmuring, some folks just need time to catch up. Buddy, Jordan bore it stoic, channeling fury into advocacy, donating workshop time for community builds, speaking at pride panels with a fire that made my chest swell. But at home, tension coiled, arguments over screen time escalating into, "You're always working," snaps. Silences stretching like rubber bands. We're good, right? He'd ask in bed, fingers lacing mine. And I'd nod. Because what else? We were the poster boys for second chances. Then the letter came, certified mail. Crisp envelope from a law firm in Albany. Jordan's face paled as he slid it open at the kitchen table. Theo napping upstairs. What is it? Beth. Coffee mug halfway to my lips. He slid it across. Voice flat. Evan's suing for custody. Nothing. We never had kids. But he's claiming emotional damages from our breakup. Dragging up old shit. Says I owe him. Rage ignited. Hot and immediate. That bastard. After all this time, it turned out, had spiraled post-Jordan, addiction, job losses, and now, clean but bitter, he was weaponizing the past. The suit was baseless, a harassment ploy, but it dredged the swamp, depositions where Jordan relived every regret, tabloid whispers linking us to scandalous origins. I rallied lawyers. PR spins, but the toll mounted. Jordan withdrew, hammering late into nights, returning hollow-eyed. Can't lose you over this, he muttered one evening, face buried in my neck after a particularly brutal hearing. Or Theo. You won't, I vowed. But fear gnawed, irrational, insidious. What if the mud stuck? What if I, the late bloomer gay dad, became the villain in some culture war screed? The climax brewed at Theo's school play, a saccharine take on the Wizard of Oz. Our 5-year-old as a wide-eyed scarecrow. We sat front row. Jordan's knee bouncing, my hand on his to still it. The curtain rose. Theo stumbling through lines with gummy-toothed charm. And for a beat, the world righted, laughter rippling. His bow met with whoops. But as intermission hit, the men approached, sharper suited, flanked by a slick attorney. Nice family you've got, he sneered, eyes raking over us. Bet the kid knows all about his dad's dirty laundry. Jordan surged up, fists clenched, but I yanked him back, heart hammering. Not here. Not now. Security hustled them out. But the damage bloomed, whispers snaking through the crowd, parents pulling kids close. Theo, spotting the commotion, ran on stage, tears streaming. "Papa? Why is that man yelling?" We scooped him up, fleeing to the car. The drive home a blur of sobs and reassurances. "Bad guy's gone. Champ," Jordan lied through gritted teeth, while I gripped the wheel white-knuckled. Betrayal's ghost clawing back. That night shattered us. Jordan paced the living room, whiskey in hand, voice rising. "This is my fault, dragging my crap into our life. You and Theo deserve better." "Stop," I snapped, exhaustion fraying my edges. "Blaming yourself fixes nothing. But hiding? That's what broke us before." He rolled, eyes wild. "Hiding? I'm fighting. Every day. For us. And losing yourself in the process." The words exploded, years of buried fears erupting. "I see you slipping." Jordan, back to that guarded guy at the bar. "If you can't trust me with this mess, what are we?" Silence crashed, heavier than the storm outside. He sank to the couch, head in hands. "I don't know how to win this without losing everything." I knelt before him, cupping his face, stubble rough, tears hot. "Then we lose together. Or win as one." But no more solos. Dawn brought armistice, coffee brewed, Theo still asleep. We called the lawyer, plotted counters, public statements, support networks. Evan folded under scrutiny, suit dismissed as vexatious, but the scars lingered, a reminder that love's battlefield never fully clears. Healing meant reinvention. We joined a dad's group, queer parents swapping war stories over park picnics, and Theo thrived, befriending a kid with two moms who shared his love of dinosaurs. Jordan channeled pain into art, a series of sculptures, twisted metal embracing fragile glass, exhibited in a Bushwick gallery. Critics called it raw humanism, but to me, it was us, bent but beautiful. Sex reignited too. Fierce and reclaiming, nights when Theo slept. We'd steal to the attic studio, bodies colliding amid paint-splattered dropcloths. "Mind," he'd growl, pinning my wrists, and I'd arch, whispering, always, the words a talisman against the dark. Theo's questions deepened with age, 7 now. Freckles dusting his nose like constellations. "Papa, were you scared when you met Daddy?" he'd ask at bedtime, nestled between us. Jordan chuckled, ruffling his hair. "Petrified. But the best things are. And hugs? They start the magic." One summer, we road-tripped cross-country, Route 66 in a vintage RV, chasing sunsets from Chicago dives to Grand Canyon rims. Theo collected rocks. Jordan sketched horizons. And I narrated ghost stories that had us howling under star-pricked skies. In a Mojave motel, neon buzzing, Jordan pulled me onto the roof. Blanket spread picnic of stolen motel ice and grapes. "Remember our first storm?" he murmured, lips brushing mine. "How could I forget?" I replied, pulling him closer. Below, Theo snored softly through the open window. Our anchor. The kiss deepened, hands roaming with the ease of decades. But we paused, parents now, guardians of more than just us. "Love you," he breathed, forehead to mine. "Further than imagined," I echoed, the vast desert mirroring our expanse. "Back east?" Autumn brought harvest festivals and Theo's first crush, a gap-toothed boy from soccer. Innocent handholds that made us beam. But shadows crept, my father's illness, a stroke in Ohio felling the oak of my youth. The stoic Korean War vet who'd never uttered, "I love you," now frail in a hospice bed, beckoned reconciliation. The drive was tense, Jordan at the wheel, Theo chattering obliviously in the back. "Will Grandpa like me?" he asked. And I swallowed the lump. "More than pie, kiddo." The room smelled of antiseptic and wilted flowers. Dad's eyes milky but sharpening on us. "Austin," he rasped, hand trembling toward mine. Jordan hung back, Theo on his hip, but I waved them forward. "This is Jordan, my husband." "And Theo, your grandson." Silence stretched. Then Dad's fingers tightened. "Heard about the divorce. Thought you'd lost your way." A cough racked him, but his gaze held Jordan's. "Looks like you found a better road." Tears stung, absolution, late but luminous. "Yeah. I did." We stayed weeks, nursing him through declines, Theo's drawings papering the walls like talismans. Dad passed gently. Eulogy at a VFW hall where I spoke of hidden loves and late blooms. "He taught me strength," I said. "Jordan's hand in mine. But you showed me heart. Grief bonded us tighter. A forge for resilience." We planted a tree in Prospect Park, cherry. For Dad's favorite pie, Theo scattering petals like confetti. "To Grandpa," he declared. And we echoed, roots delving deep. Decades turn brought Theo to teens, awkward limbs, voice cracking, crushes evolving into heartbreaks that echoed our own. He came out at 15. Bi-curious flag pinned to his backpack. And we hugged him fierce. No questions. "Proud," Jordan choked. And I added, "Hug it out anytime." His first boyfriend, Mateo, joined family dinners, nervous laughs over lasagna, easy affection that healed old divides. But teen storms brewed, Theo's rebellion, sneaking out for parties, grades slipping like sand. "He's just finding his feet," Jordan defended during blowouts. But I pushed therapy, boundaries, fearing we'd fail him as I'd felt failed. The blow-up peaked at 16. Theo caught joyriding, cop lights flashing in our driveway. "You're ruining me," he screamed, slamming his door, words knives to the gut. Jordan and I collapsed on the stairs. "But we can't lose him," I whispered, head on his shoulder. "We won't," he vowed, kiss to my temple. "Like you saved me." We doubled down, family counseling, open talks under the cherry tree. Theo softened, admitting pressures. "I don't want to disappoint you guys. You're perfect." I left, pulling him into a bear hug. "We're messes who got lucky. Just be you." Graduation came, cap and gown, Mateo's cheers loudest, and college apps to Pratt. Architecture like his old man. "Build something real." Theo, Jordan toasted at the party. Eyes misty. Empty nest loomed. But we filled it, traveling Italy's Amalfi Coast. Hands linked on cliffside paths, volunteering at the youth center. Now a beacon I designed. Sex stayed sacred, silver-streaked now. But no less hungry. Mornings lazy with coffee and caresses. 60th birthday for me. Surprise party in the workshop, Theo and Mateo grilling. Mia's clan toasting. Jordan gifted a blueprint, our dream cabin expansion, for grandkids someday. Further still, he asked later. Slow dancing in the kitchen. Endless, I murmured. Heartful. Legacy unfolded, Theo's wedding under that cherry tree. His vows echoing ours, granddaughters with hazel eyes, tumbling through sawdust. Jordan and I, gray and grinning, watched from the porch swing, hands entwined. Best hug ever, he quipped one sunset, head on my shoulder. Damn right, I agreed. The horizon our canvas, painted in hues of hard-won grace. Twilight years crept in gentle, like fog off the Hudson, aches in joints that once bent easy, but joys undimmed. The workshop became a legacy, Theo taking reins while Jordan mentored apprentices. His hands gnarled but sure. I consulted part-time, sketching adaptive reuses for old factories, each line a nod to reinvention. Our Ditma's home, once fixer, now a haven, herb garden bursting sage and thyme. The porch swing creaking under our weight. Scout long buried under the cherry, but his spirit in every wag of the granddog's tails. Theo's girls, Lila and Nora, 8 and 5. Whirlwinds of braids and questions, filled weekends with chaos. Papa Jordan, tell the hug story, they'd beg, clambering onto his lap. And he'd spin it epic, the rainy bar, the stranger's arms, the lightning strike of love. I'd interject. And don't forget the pancakes, burnt, but with heart. But age whispered warnings, Jordan's heart murmur. Treated but nagging, my memory lapses. Names slipping like soap. Alzheimer's shadow, the doc said gently. Prescribing puzzles and walks. Fear flickered, losing him to fog. Or worse, him watching me fade. We'll face it, Jordan said, tracing my palm lines. Like always, a stroke felled him at 70, mild. Thank God. But a wake-up. Rehab in the city. Theo shuttling us. Mia's soups sustaining. I read to him from dog-eared Hemingway, his hand in mine, the loft's windows framing a skyline we'd conquered. Miss the sawdust, he grumbled one afternoon. Therapy weary. Miss your ass in jeans, I teased, earning a wheeze laugh. Progress came slow, first steps unaided, then home. The house adapted with rails and ramps. Intimacy evolved again, gentle, firming. His fingers mapping my wrinkles like cherished maps. Still mine, he'd murmur, and I'd affirm. Yours. Grandkids' visits became therapy, Lila's art projects cluttering tables. Nora's songs off-key but soulful. You're old like dinosaurs, she declared once, patting Jordan's knee. And we howled, the sound chasing shadows. Theo's call came mid-autumn, cancer, pancreatic, aggressive. At 45. A boy. Felt. The world tilted. Grief a tidal wave. We rallied, drives to Sloan Kettering. Hands clasped in sterile weights. Lila and Nora's drawings taped to 4 poles. Son, Jordan urged, voice cracking, echoing his own battles. Theo smiled, one but wise. I had the best teachers. Love you. Dads. Hospice came too soon. Our home his harbor, bed by the window. Cherry tree view. We told stories round the clock. The road trip flat tire fixed with duct tape and curses. His first goal. Our cheers deafening. Mateo held vigil. The girls curled at his feet. Papa Theo's tired, Lila whispered. And we nodded, hearts shredding. He slipped away at dawn, and in ours, breath easing like a sigh. The funeral packed the park, friends from his firm, kids from the center he'd mentored. Eulogies flowed, Theo built bridges, one said. Just like his dad's. Grief hollowed us. But we filled it communal, a foundation in his name. Eco-homes for queer youth. Jordan carved the plaque. Hands steady despite tremors. For Theo Hail King, hug the world. Winters softened with time. Snow blanketing the yard like forgiveness. We wintered in Florida, Mia's condo. Sun chasing chills, rocking on her lanai. Ocean whispers mending. He'd be proud, Jordan said one evening, watching pelicans dive. Damn straight, I replied, leaning into him. 80 hit me first, party with balloons and bad cake. Toasts to the architect of hearts. Jordan, ever the carpenter, gifted a locket, photo of us young, bar hazy. Inside one of Theo, grandgirls flanking. Keepsakes, he said, fastening it. Not in. Found me napping one visit. Book splayed on chest. Grandpa Austin, you okay? Her worry. Shall I tell? Just dreaming. Sprout. I pulled her close. Of hugs that started it all. She giggled. Snuggling. Tell me. And I did. Voice weaving the tale. Whiskey. A stranger's arms, while Jordan watched from the doorway. Eyes soft. His decline quickened after congestive heart failure. The murmurs crescendo. Don't you dare leave me, I growled during hospital stays, holding his hand like a lifeline. Wouldn't dream, he rasped, thumb stroking mine. Home hospice mirrored Theo's, our bed now. Monitors beeping softly. Grandkids rotated. Stories their vigil. Lila reading architecture tomes. Nora singing off-key anthems. One night, lucid and strong, he pulled me close. Austin. Best detour ever. Till the end, I choked, kissing knuckles worn smooth. Dawn broke rosy, cherry petals drifting past the pane. His breath faltered, hands slackening. Jordan. Panic surged. But peace settled, his eyes. Blue as bruised skies. Meeting mine one last. Further. Then gone. The room echoing absence. Grief was a chasm. Days blurring to fog. Mia moved in. Grandgirls chatter a buoy. I wandered the workshop. Fingers tracing his tools, chisels he'd wielded like extensions of soul. Theo's foundation thrived. Buildings rising like beacons. But without him, the swing creaked lonely. Spring bloomed defiant, cherry exploding pink. A reminder of cycles. I spoke at the center's gala. Voice steady, love isn't linear. Does hugs in storms? Betrayals mended, losses that light the way. Jordan taught me that, through every further than imagined. Claps thundered, but tears fell free. Under the tree, I scattered his ashes, mixed with Theo's. A circle complete. Wait for me, I whispered to the wind. Years waned. 90 sneaking up. Violet. Architect now. Designed my care wing, sleek. Sunlit. Nora visited. Her wife and their son in tow. The great-grand tugging my sleeve. Great-gramps. Hug story. I smiled. Frail but full. Pulling him onto the bed. Once upon a rainy night. The end came gentle, bedside chorus of family, hands layered like quilts. Further, I breathed, vision fading to blue skies, a bar's warm haze. And there, arms up, crooked smile. Austin. Hug time. I stepped in. Whole at last, story closed. But echoes eternal.